Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the California Native Plants for Habitat Gardening, presented by Master Gardeners of Placer County. My name is Brooke, and I'll be your moderator today. As you saw in the opening slide, this talk is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube website after it's been uploaded. The link to the video and the accompanying resources can be accessed at our pcmg.ucanr.org website. If you have questions during the talk, please post them in the chat menu and our presenter will answer them at the end. At this time, I'd like to give you our presenter, T.C. Markle. Take it away.
Morning, everybody. My name is T.C. Markle, and I've been a Master Gardener since 2013. I'm talking to you today about creating habitat for wildlife because it has become a passion of mine. Over time as a gardener, I have developed a huge interest in bees, butterflies, and birds, and learning what to plant to attract them in my yard. It is a thrill to see who visits, and it truly illustrates if you plant it, they will come. Who are the Master Gardeners? Well, we're the Master Gardeners of Placer County, and we extend research-based sustainable gardening and composting information to the public, and then you get to decide what you want to do with that information. Where can you find us? Well, you can reach us at hotline. It's right there, or you can submit your questions online to our website. The website address is right there where it says website. We also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have a Gold Country Media monthly column you can see in various newspapers. Curious Gardener is an online quarterly newsletter that's free, and you can sign up for that on our website. And we sell our gardening guide and calendar yearly. Where else can you find us? Well, when it's not COVID times, you can find us at workshops, fairs, and festivals, farmers markets, and we have a garden fair in April, which is planned for next year, and our Mother's Day garden tour, which we are anxiously waiting to return to you next year also. Here's a screenshot of our web page, and I want to show you a few things that are important here. After today's workshop, you may go here where it says virtual gardening workshops, and you can click there and get a link to watch this video again. So you will not need to take extensive notes today. It will all be there for you later. Up at the top here on this banner, it says landscape plants. And if you click on that, there's going to be a drop down that will have a big section on California native plants and pollinator resources, which relates to our topic today. And then one other thing I'd like to show you, over on the left side, about halfway down, it says Curious Gardener Newsletter. You can click here and go in and sign up for that free newsletter, which will come to you quarterly. All right, let's look at our agenda for today. We will talk about the importance of insects, why natives are keystone plants, healthy habitat needs, pollinators, birds, butterflies and larval host plants, important plant genera, and resources. Doug Tallamy is a professor of entomology and wildlife ecology at the University of Delaware. He writes this in his book, Nature's Best Hope. Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson called insects the little things that run the world because of the many essential ecological roles they play every day. Insects pollinate 87.5% of all plants and 90% of all flowering plants. And plants turn energy from the sun into food that we and an unimaginable diversity of birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and freshwater fishes need to exist. Insects are also the primary means by which the food created by plants is delivered to animals. Most vertebrates do not eat plants directly. Far more often, they eat insects that have converted plant sugars and carbohydrates into the vital proteins and fats that fuel complex food webs. Insects then sustain the Earth's ecosystems by sustaining the plants and animals that run those ecosystems. and the more plants and animals, the better. Caterpillars are the perfect choice of birds raising their young. Caterpillars make perfect baby food as they are like soft bags filled with food. It would take 200 aphids to equal the weight of one medium-sized caterpillar. A single pair of breeding chickadees must find 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars to rear one clutch of young, according to Doug. He says, our nearly universal animosity toward insects is understandable, but seriously misplaced. Of the 9 million or so insect species on Earth, a mere 1% interact with humans in negative ways. The other 99% of the insect species pollinate plants, return the nutrients tied up in dead plants and animals to the soil, keep populations of insect herbivores in check, aerate and enrich the soil, and as I keep stressing, provide food either directly or indirectly for most other animals. He wrote that in his book, Bringing Nature Home, How Native Plants Sustain Wildlife in Our Gardens. Let's look at this photo from the perspective of wildlife. It looks wild and weedy, but there's a lot going on here that is beneficial to wildlife. Large swaths of flowers attract pollinators. Those oak trees are food for many varieties of moth and butterfly caterpillars. They provide nesting and hiding spots for birds and mammals. Those grasses may be larval host food for moths and butterflies too. They also provide overwintering sites for insects. Notice the layers. In the foreground is bare soil for ground nesting bees. There are trees with mid-story and canopy layers for shelter from the elements and from predators. In terms of biological activity, a lawn is the least productive of our plantings. The replacement of the original ecosystem with turf grass reduces the ability of the space to support the birds and the bees, but also reduces the contribution the area was making towards supporting human life. Lawn produces little oxygen compared to shrubs and trees, and offers little moisture to be transpired into the air as part of the water cycle. Dozens of native bee species lose nesting sites, and we lose contributions of those bees toward pollinating crops and other plants. Compared to the meadows, shrubs, and trees, lawns are not terrific at delivering essential ecosystem services we need. For these reasons and more, our lawns are great places to start building biological corridors. Compare the previous lawn photo to these two in this slide and notice the huge variety of plants with various flower types, the layers where wildlife can mate and raise their young, and can find hiding places to rest. Robert Payne, an ecologist from the University of Washington, found that keystone species have a disproportionately large effect on the abundance and diversity of other species in an ecosystem. He compared such species to keystones because, like the center stone of an ancient Roman arch that supports the other stones that make up the arch, keystone species support other species in their ecosystem and help them coexist. Remove the keystone and the arch, or the ecosystem, falls down. Keystone plants are unique components of local food webs. Without them, the food web all but falls apart without some minimal number of keystone genera in a landscape. Oaks are a keystone species in California. They are larval host food for 270 moth and butterfly species. They provide acorns for birds and mammals. They provide nests for birds and shelter for animals. In many ecosystems, oaks are superior at slowing rainfall's rush to the sea. Their huge canopies break the force of pounding rain before it can compact the soil. Their massive root systems prevent soil erosion and create underground channels that encourage rainwater infiltration instead of runoff. Lignin-rich oak leaves are slow to break down once they fall from the tree and create excellent leaf litter habitat for hundreds of species of soil arthropods, nematodes, and other invertebrates. Galls are created when the tiny cynniped wasp lays her eggs on the twigs of valley oaks. After the larvae hatch, they start munching on twig tissues, which releases chemical compounds that produce the galls. Each larva has its own secure home with a built-in food supply, walls lined with edible starch and amino acids. Some cynniped wasps have evolved a strategy to ward off parasitic invaders. They command the gall to secrete copious amounts of honeydew, liquid sugar, that runs over the surface of the gall and attracts ants, bees, and yellow jackets. Added to this feeding frenzy are birds, lizards, and larger insects like dragonflies. A number of bird species, including western scrub jays, bore into the oak galls to find the larvae inside. Mammals such as squirrels, raccoons, and opossums gnaw on the galls, probably seeking the starchy lining. If you think of a plant as a wildlife feeder, oaks make the most food. A healthy habitat needs to include food for adult pollinators. Nectar provides carbohydrates for flight fuel. Pollen provides protein, vitamins, minerals, and fats. Both pollen and nectar are needed to feed bee offspring. Plants also provide food for young in the form of larval host plants for caterpillars. These caterpillars are used as baby bird food as well. Native plants are sources of both pollen and nectar for pollinators and hummingbirds. Birds depend on caterpillars as well as moths for soft food for their chicks. The pollen and nectar that constitute a bee's diet don't contain much moisture, so bees must have a water source. Bees need shallow, safe landing spots to prevent drowning. Add gravel and rocks to offer them a safe drinking place. In larger bird baths, water should only be several inches deep. You may provide floating pieces of cork for bee rescue. Butterflies prefer wet sand or mud for what's known as puddling, which offers minerals especially important for healthy reproduction. Here I mixed sand and compost with water and added a few rocks for sunning. FYI, dirty water refers to water containing nutrients, so it's okay to let leaves and algae sit in your bee water source. Minerals leach from those into the water. Be sure to dump the water every 3 to 5 days to discourage mosquitoes from laying eggs, but you don't need to scrub or disinfect the dish. To support pollinators, we need to plant in layers from the tree canopy, understory, shrubs, herbaceous plants, and finally ground cover. These layers provide shelter from predators and weather extremes. Think 3D, says Doug Tallamy, and in fact, maybe think 4D, since by designing your landscape in all 3 dimensions, layering plants into complex communities, you'll add the D of diversity too. 70% of native bees are ground nesters. Leave some bare, unmulched soil for nest construction. The other 30% of native bees are cavity or tunnel nesters, like these bees pictured here. The leafcutter bee cuts half-moon-shaped leaf pieces to line the cavity, depositing pollen and nectar, laying 1 egg, then capping off that brood cell with another circle of leaf until all the chambers are full. Mason bees supply her nest cavity in a similar manner, except that she uses mud to separate the individual brood cells. Snags and logs are used by wildlife in various ways. Woodpeckers use trees as granaries to store acorns for a future food supply. Various insects use old logs for homes and places to lay eggs. One of those logs on the bottom right was a home for a frog. Leaving some wild areas will provide butterfly and moth pupation sites. Brush piles and hollow stems are great locations for pollination and nesting sites. Small clumps of grass, weeds, or debris left under shrubs can protect bumblebee queens as they overwinter in the nests underground. Leave leaf litter under shrubs and trees. 94% of moth caterpillars fall to the ground when fully grown, where they either burrow into the soil to pupate underground or spin a cocoon in the leaf litter under the tree. Ground covers planted under trees make perfect sites for moths to complete their development safely. Butterfly caterpillars will crawl off their host plants to find safe pupation sites. Experts think the evolutionary motivation for such trekking is for caterpillars to put distance between themselves and their host plant before they enter the defenseless pupal stage. Artificial lights are believed to be a factor in the decline of nocturnal wildlife such as moths and may disrupt the migration of birds that navigate by starlight. As you can see by this list, light pollution causes many problems for night-flying insects. While the reason that moths are attracted to artificial lights may not be a settled matter of science, reducing light pollution will certainly be to their benefit. So what can we do? Turn off outdoor lights when not in use. For security concerns, use motion detector lights. Then the light only comes on when needed. Or take out your current white bulbs and replace them with yellow bulbs. Yellow wavelengths are far less attractive to insects than the white bulbs are. Yellow LED bulbs are the least attractive to insects. So, who are the pollinators? We have bees, butterflies, wasps, moths, beetles, flies, birds, bats, wind, and humans. Bats do not pollinate here locally, but they do in the desert. Wind accounts for 13% of pollination. Allergy sufferers are well aware of wind-blown pollen like that from oak, pine, and olive trees. Most folks are familiar with honeybees, but may be surprised to learn that they are European imports brought by the early settlers to our country. People have heard of the difficulties bees are experiencing with colony collapse disorder. On the right side of the slide, we see representatives of the 1,600 bees that are native to California. These native bees provide pollinator services and are often very specialized in their work, and sometimes are more efficient than honeybees. As few as 10 carefully chosen plant species will provide a good foundation of pollinator plants. Grouping the same plants together will attract a greater number of pollinators. The size of the pollinators, the length of their tongues, and the accessibility of nectar and pollen determine the flower's preferences of pollinators. Including a variety of plants with different flowers, sizes, shapes, and colors, as well as plant heights, will support the greatest number and diversity of pollinators. Flowers often have contrasting color marks, lines, patterns, or freckles that serve as guides to where a bee should go in the flower. These are called nectar guides. There are 127 different phacelias native to California, and pollinators are drawn to them like magnets. Clarkia, known commonly as farewell to spring, has 71 varieties in California. Verbena lilacina delamina is a huge nectar favorite of butterflies. Grindelia, or gumweed, is also a good pollinator plant. Achillea millefolium is an example of a plant with umbel-shaped flowers which provide landing pads for all kinds of pollinators. Premontodendron attracts bees and butterflies. There are 135 different ceanothus types in California. All are very attractive to pollinators. That is a painted lady butterfly nectaring on dark star ceanothus flowers. Tubular flowers like these two penstemons are attractive to certain bees and hummingbirds. Helianthus californicus supports birds, bees, caterpillars, and butterflies. Erigeron glaucus is a member of the daisy family that blooms almost all year long. It is attractive to butterflies and bees. Here it is visited by a hoverfly, which is a bee mimic. Here are just two members of the lupinus group of plants. There are 138 lupins that are native to California. Lupins are larval hosts to 75 different moth and butterfly species. Bees, hummingbirds, and butterflies flock to it. Neonicotinoids are commonly used insecticides which are highly water soluble, allowing the growing plants to absorb and transport the chemical to all plant tissues, all the way from roots to pollen. Pollinators may consume contaminated plant products like leaves, pollen, and nectar and be killed if they consume a high enough dose of the chemical. The use of neonics and other pesticides is common in nurseries, and plants are often not labeled as treated when sold. Please talk to the store manager to find out if their plants have been treated. Let's look at a few birds. Anna's hummingbirds are the only year-round hummingbird resident of Placer County. The female nests anytime from December through spring. They make their nests from lichen and spider webs. They feed small insects to their young. It is important to have flowers blooming year-round for hummingbirds. It is critical in winter and early spring as these flowers are a source of tiny insects that are crucial baby food. The adults need the nectar and insects that they find in the tubular flowers of the ribes family and the bell-shaped flowers of manzanita. During the following fall, other bird species eat the currants, gooseberries, and the little apples of manzanita. Among spring nectar choices are evening primrose and the orchid-shaped flowers of desert willow. These three summer bloomers are top choices among hummingbirds. We have California fuchsia, hummingbird sage, and the various Cleveland sages. In 1977, the bluebird populations across the country, including our local western bluebird, were in decline. Their natural nesting sites, cavities in trees, were disappearing due to urban sprawl and the elimination of tree snags. A dedicated activist, Dr. Lawrence Zellini, created the North American Bluebird Society to mobilize action. People began to build and install nesting boxes according to specifications and monitoring them. As a result, this beautiful bird has made a comeback. You can help too by planting native plants, leaving tree snags, or putting up nesting boxes. Tree swallows use the same size box as used by bluebirds. Their nests are identified by the use of grasses and are lined with feathers. These two bird species will nest within 15 feet of each other. Both are fairly tolerant of human activity. Many species of wildflowers, grasses, shrubs, and trees are butterfly hosts. Caterpillars of some species will eat only a single species of plant, while others will eat a wide range of plants. Often butterflies and moths have specialized relationships with native larval host plants. For the many butterflies that are host plant specific, such as monarchs with their milkweeds, the availability of these host plants is critical to their survival. The first photo shows a blooming showy milkweed plant being visited by honeybees. The upper middle photo illustrates the tiny size of a fairly young monarch caterpillar, followed next by a later instar caterpillar. On the bottom row is a newly pupated jade green individual next to the dark pupa that is very close to emerging as an adult, or eclosing. That is an adult male monarch on the far right. You can tell that it's a male because of these two little dots right here. That's where they emit their pheromones to attract the females, and they have narrow window pane stripes here. Here are two other Placer County milkweed species, Asclepias fascicularis, narrow-leaf milkweed, and Asclepias cordifolia, heartleaf milkweed. Leaves are the primary source of caterpillar food, but they will also eat stems, flowers, and immature fruit. These photos illustrate the life cycle of the pipevine swallowtail butterfly. The California Dutchman's pipevine is the larval host plant. From the upper left, you can see the flowers, which resemble an old-fashioned pipe. Then, eggs on a leaf, some of which have already hatched. That's my thumb there for perspective, so you see how tiny those eggs are. On the bottom row, we have the caterpillar, then a pupa attached to a stem, and finally the adult pipevine swallowtail, nectaring on the native Verbena lilacina de la Mina. There are 17 confirmed host plants for the western tiger swallowtail butterfly, including hollyleaf cherry, white alder, and western sycamore. The Ceanothus silk moth has 24 confirmed larval host plants, including Ceanothus thursiflorus and Ceanothus cuneatus. The California tortoiseshell butterfly has 6 confirmed larval host plants in the Ceanothus species. Let's look at a few other keystone genera. There are more than 125 Eriogonum species in California. This is Eriogonum giganteum, our largest buckwheat. It grows 4 to 10 feet wide and 5 feet high. It is a UC Davis all-star. There are an incredible 261 Eriogonums native to California. Here are just 3 more that grow well in Placer County: California buckwheat, sulfur buckwheat, and the red flowering buckwheat. Toyon is part of our drought-adapted chaparral and mixed oak woodland plant communities. These are beautiful plants and are easy to grow. The flowers attract bees and butterflies. They are host to 4 confirmed species of butterflies and moths, and the berries are very attractive to birds in the winter. This California wild rose grows about 10 by 10 feet. It attracts pollinators in the spring. Rose hips are great bird food in the winter, and the species are host to 95 butterflies and moths. The flowers on this Frangula californica are insignificant, but pollinators of all kinds and sizes love them. It is a confirmed host for 10 moths and butterflies and a likely host for 23 others. The berries are valued as winter food for birds. Blue elderberry is tough, easy to grow, and grows very rapidly. It can grow to a 15-foot tree in 3 years if it's happy. Its berries are one of the most important sources of food for birds in California. Prunus ilicifolia is another keystone species in California. The entire genus, which includes plums, cherries, chokeberries, peaches, etc., is host to 246 species of moths and butterflies. The trees are absolutely abuzz with pollinators when in bloom. The Arctostaphylos species is host to 68 moths and butterflies. The little apples, or manzanitas, are a great source of winter food for birds. A hedgerow is a mixture of trees and/or flowering shrubs that typically includes an understory of grasses and nectar flowers. The plants are allowed to flower and reach full size to intertwine with each other. Hedgerows have enormous wildlife value as they offer dense cover and a diversity of seasonal food sources. If you are not familiar with CalScape, it is the California Native Plant Society database about California plants local to your area. Let's look at it briefly. I typed in my zip code to see which plants are native to my location. Then I clicked on this butterfly heading up here. And I still have my zip code in place. And it says that there are 110 butterflies and moths native to my location. I chose a butterfly, the Western Tiger Swallowtail, to see which plants are confirmed host plants. And here they are across here. Wherever there's a check mark, that's a confirmed host plant. This map shows the location of butterfly sightings. I chose to look at the hollyleaf cherry. Plant photos are shown from foliage to flowers to fruit. Underneath the photos in green print right here, it lists 46 nurseries that carry this plant. So you could click on that and it would open up and show you all those nurseries. Then scrolling down, we see other butterflies and moths that use this plant as a host. Then we see landscaping information such as light exposure, water and soil needs, etc. Here's a selection of excellent reference books about growing native plants. I'd like to highlight this one right here, The California Wildlife Habitat Garden by Nancy Bauer. It features profiles of private gardens where the owners have enhanced their local habitat. The book has 10 appendices of plants and resources. All these books will be listed with the others on our resource page, which will be, you can access them on our website within a few days of this video. Planted and they will come, as the saying goes. These are just a few of the visitors who have come to visit or to stay. Thank you for attending the workshop. And Brooke, are there any questions?
I don't think that there are. Nobody has typed in anything, TC. That was a great presentation. Does anybody have any questions for TC? No?
All right, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much for coming. And as we said, that you can find the recording on our website in a couple of days. They'll also be able to see when we'll have our next workshop in July. And you may feel free to leave the workshop meeting now. And thank you so much for coming. We look forward to having you again. Bye-bye.